Petroglyphs are pectoran-sized carvings on stone faces, usually whatever is the regional stone of choice. In Pennsylvania, it's a lot of sandstone. We're going to check out some more modern carvings in our little talk today also. So thanks for tagging along with Timber Adventures, and please enjoy. Like, subscribe, share, and comment. Petroglyphs are rock art, and usually it's a design, maybe a shape resembling a man, animal, object, sometimes abstract markings as well that cannot be easily defined. Rather, it's not really up to us to define. Those definitions were done by the original creators, and in Pennsylvania, most of the indigenous petroglyphs are generally thought to be around 1,000 years old. So we've looked at various petroglyphs on some of our older videos, and I encourage anyone to go back and check those out if you're interested. They're very informative. Let's also understand that much of the interpretations are not known, and they can be pure and absolute speculation and conjecture on some ideas. So please remember that these are not precise interpretations at all. But let's look at other carvings to see a more historical or modern ideas marked on stones for us to see. Many of these, from our simple minds, can be easily interpreted. So really, we're concrete in our thinking. Not much abstract thinking goes into things that were placed on stones in our historical or modern times. So I'm not saying that we're all simple, so don't shoehorn me into that idea that I'm calling people simpletons. Sometimes I've heard the term petroglyphs and glyphs used interchangeably, and this isn't accurate. In fact, when I was first learning and speaking about these carvings, I believe I did the exact same interchangeable mix, and it's incorrect. Glyphs are defined as numbers or letters, or a writing system. Whether it is a different style of lettering or symbols that we know reflect a term, a word, it's interactive communication. And I have seen many types of script, from block lettering to unorganized, sloppy peck dot by dot words and initials. You name it, I've had the opportunity to see it. So I have a particular script that I'm looking at in my thoughts right now. And this script is a rather fancy cursive. And when looking at this example of this actual script, the style and cursive font could possibly date to 1775 to 1815 range, with the actual style resembling French writing. And I'm using some research for comparison on this that I have done for some scripts that have been found on gravestones back in those days. And I'm using this particular example because I've come up on that beautiful cursive script. It was a font initials up upon this rock in Allegheny River. And using all those little details I provided and the research, we can possibly narrow that script down to a really tight time range. But I believe to date the script to those time periods is going to be very difficult, as many different cultures and societies have chosen their own designs, as well as they will lay claim to being the first no matter what and when it was done. And we're a repetitive species. We see something like that, and 100 years later, we want to copy that same style because it looked good, it was interesting, it was different. But I'm speaking from a general point of view of some of the minor research and consulting I have done regarding scripts that appear on gravestones and other known period correct monuments, etc. So this brings me to another point of what other items may change during different time periods to help determine a date for the carvings. Maybe we will witness different types of lingo, slang terms, even different languages. Symbols are known to be specific to a block of time. And if you look at languages, you can look at when that particular society was introduced to the New World. You know, when did those people begin populating that area? That helped define some of those carvings. To give an example of kind of term or lingo, let's look at hobo signs, which we know were done between the late 1860s, some consider 1880s, but to the early 1940s or so era, the hobo era. So there are many different types of words, symbols that stood for various terms and lingo which we know as the hobo language. Quick example, sky pilot, that meant preacher. Bull, that was the railroad security man who was sent up and down the rail lines to boot hobos out of boxcars and off the trains. If you want to go down a rabbit hole, look up hobonickel.com, nickel like the coin, and you're going to be blown away by an entire dictionary of terminology and mind-boggling with how many different terms that they use. The hobo signs that are carved that we see are great examples of glyphs. It's a language or a type of communication that we can use to dial in a time period. For the record, there were also non-permanent markings that hobos made, usually on curbs within the cities and towns, to signify if a town was receptive to them. For instance, I can get a meal here, or I can get a drink of water, or I'm going to get my ass kicked. They were used charcoal, rarely used chalk. It just wasn't something that they had easily accessible to them. But some type of implement to discolor the cement on a curb and communicate with other hobos passing through that area. So they were sort of like a modern day spray paint graffiti, something that was perhaps only temporary. And let's go back and revisit petroglyphs. So I have an original thought that is purely conjecture idea. I'm being a devil's advocate with this idea, but perhaps by some strange reason, during these various carvings that we attribute to indigenous people. And I surely think that they were done by shaman, leaders, spiritual people within the tribes. And I base that knowledge on things that I've learned over the past few years by individuals who have truly invested and researched lots of time, and not only in but out of books as well. In fact, out of the academic setting entirely, in the wild, so to speak. But let's do a little devil advocacy here and say, what if it was just a couple bored adolescents from a tribe that snuck off and it was merely graffiti? Is that so different as today's graffiti that we run into? It is different though. It's more abstract and challenging to a person's mind to see these images. More artistic as well. Not that modern graffiti isn't artistic, because it can be. Definitely more permanent to carve upon a stone than to paint upon a wall. So that was just an interesting thought, which can lead us right back to society and how we communicate and interact with others. Back to indigenous carvings. Did they carve over prior symbols and markings in petroglyphs? So we as strange humans that we find it incredibly difficult not to carve or graffiti over top of previous carvings. And we see this everywhere, from different indigenous sites such as Indian God Rock, Rainbow Rocks, several others that I won't mention specifically here, but we've come across the fact that indigenous carvings have some modern initials overlapping. Indian God Rock is perhaps the best example, as a historical carvings almost obliterate the beautiful indigenous carvings that existed prior. But we are a social creature, and if we see somebody else's sign, oftentimes we want to add our own to be part of something. Now, my friend Tom has stated, and I believe that he is actually onto a very good point, that oftentimes another culture may come along, and in there, maybe it's their subconscious minds, that they set upon and they see these original carvings and just absolutely have to carve over top of it to show perhaps dominance, or that they were there also. But it's done over top for a specific reason, to show possible superiority. Now, this isn't such a crazy concept, as we have seen many times. Cemeteries have been placed over top of other cemeteries, or churches and parishes have been built over top of great graveyards and burial areas themselves. We saw it in the Middle Ages in Europe and all throughout, and we see it many times in Israel and Egypt. Almost any site that has ruins and buildings over the ruins always almost occur, and we see this quite a bit. So some petroglyphs show signs that these carvings may have been a generational, a repetitive carving, So each time the group went back to that area, it appears that over many years they would sit down and recarve or regroove again and again. And we've seen this at Parker's Landing, Indian God Rock, and many of the other sites that I've been to. And to this, we often think that it's a shaman or a holy person who is perhaps in a meditative state. And maybe each time they visit that site, they carry out the same ritual or actions as previously and run a stone through those carvings over and over again. Now, to further play into that thought that my friend has about the different societies, such as the post-contact era, when many Europeans spilled into Pennsylvania, and when we start seeing that these carvings and initials and names are over top of those original beautiful indigenous carvings. Perhaps it's their way of saying this is our land now. But let's play on that for a second. Lying deep underneath the carvings, do we think that maybe at some point there were prior carving markings from other indigenous people? And when the new group of indigenous people came along, they carved over theirs? Perhaps in some areas. In the area that I speak of in Pennsylvania, photogrammetry has been done, and it is very accurate in pointing out the carvings and markings. Oftentimes, the stuff that we cannot see with our naked eye, and the photogrammetry can put that in a different view and perspective, and we can see those distinct carvings that lie sometimes underneath and clearly when we can't eyeball them ourselves. Therefore, the photogrammetry does show us that we are witnessing and recording the first carvings that were placed upon these stones. So do we patent the concept of carving over other people? Are we the ones who initiated that concept to carve over somebody else's stuff? It's possible. With that, let's remember that the New World, as I mentioned, it wasn't new. It was the world just like the rest of the planet. It had been here all along with societies and people growing all the time, developing, changing, always shifting and advancing their communities and technologies and patterns of living. Just a little different pace and a little different method. Once again, Timber Adventures, thanks for traveling along in our little chat. Timber T had surgery. He's on the mend. He did extremely well, and he will be resting and recovering, and soon we look forward to getting out and walking again and having some beautiful photographs with him in them. An unorthodox peek into rock carvings. And that's pretty much what we did today. Cheers.